Hi, everyone, and welcome to Workshop Wednesday. I'm Jeanette Mulvey, the Content Director for CO, a publication for small businesses from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. We know this is a really challenging time for small businesses, and our Workshop Wednesdays are filled with ideas and inspiration to help you keep your business running through this time. This week, we're talking about how to pivot your business from delivery and curbside pickup to complete business overhauls. Small businesses are finding incredibly creative ways to adapt to the coronavirus pandemic. Our panel today has some great ideas and advice on how you can pivot your business too. Audience, I'll be taking your questions later in the interview, so keep typing them in the panel on the right-hand side of your screen. And if you see a question you like, definitely hit the thumbs up button so we can ask the most popular ones first. Today, our panel includes Bridget Weston, Acting CEO of SCORE, a national coaching organization for small businesses, Ramon Ray, founder of smarthustle.com, and Chris Herron, who is CEO and co-founder of Creature Comforts Brewing in Athens, Georgia. Welcome, Ramon, Bridget, and Chris. Chris, I'm going to go to you first. So tell us a little bit about your business, how you've been impacted by the pandemic, and how that's changed your business model as a result.
Sure, Jeanette. Thank you very much. One, grateful to be here and appreciate everybody joining. So we're a brewery down in Athens, Georgia, and we have been hit pretty hard like everybody. About 35% of our business goes through bars and restaurants. Another 15% went through our own tap room on site. And so pretty much overnight, 50% of the business disappeared. And really for us, it was a time for us to lean back and to a lot of work that we had done in preparation prior to this ever hitting. Every year, as a part of our annual planning process, we actually sit in a room and we talk about answering this one question, which is what is possible. And we talk about both things that are great and things that are potentially very bad. We had never predicted a pandemic, but we had talked a lot about what would we do should something drastic happen. And that for us was, we're going to lean back into our purpose, which is to help foster human connection. And what are the challenges to that, and how can we still survive while doing that? And one of the things that came out of us kind of all getting back together and brainstorming was the idea of, initially hand sanitizer came as, hey, people are going to be coming to visit the tap room looking for the ability to connect, and people want to be more sanitary. We should have more hand sanitizer, and we might not be able to buy it. So we started saying, well, can we make it? You know, do we have tools to do that? And so what started out as something that we thought would be a tool for guests visiting the brewery quickly became something that there's no one visiting our brewery. But we had figured out a recipe just off of the World Health Organization website for it. And so we started to say, well, you know, if the goal for us is to foster human connection, and people need, you know, the ability to be as sanitary as they can in this kind of environment, maybe that is a natural place for us to lean into. A number of distilleries and others had started getting into it as well. We actually came a little bit after the curve because we really stopped everything and gave ourselves about 3 days to say, how do we do this in what could be a sustainable way and something that still felt like Creature Comforts? And so we ended up reusing some of our bottling equipment. We're actually putting it into beer bottles and in a sort of a refill package. But through that, we've seen an increase when we have hand sanitizer available. It's been going very, very well. We actually get an 88% lift on our beer sales to go. And what we ended up doing is moving away from the tap room model that we've had and implementing a drive-through where people literally drive through our parking lot, and we use a touchless system, as many have, to where people can grab, place an order, pay for their beer or hand sanitizer, and it's actually opened up a whole new world of customers. We've been able to donate and meet the needs of every nonprofit in our area that's reached out, and it's also allowed us to keep all of our employees at 100% pay and all of their hours. So although business is not what it was in terms of just this isn't making it up, taking a second to stop and just think, and we put everyone in a room for a day and we just brainstormed. We brainstormed all the possible scenarios that could play out that we could think of, and we looked, you know, to try to say, what are the tools and materials we have that are maybe something that we could leverage for the community or for our own business. And this was one that we make it out of isopropyl, which is a product we use a lot. We have, as a brewery, we're a sanitary environment to begin with, and this was just a really we wouldn't have ever guessed that we would make hand sanitizer, but it's turned out to be really just great for the community. The Athens community has been extremely appreciative. It's built a lot of goodwill for I think the company, because we've sold it at very reasonable prices. And it's given us something to be hopeful about. And I think as a leader during a time like this, leaning back into your values and trying to find things that give your team something to work on that's hopeful is a really powerful thing. And so we never sort of looked at it and said, okay, we're going to have to shut down. We always play in a sandbox. We always play in a box that has rules, whether it's legal rules or regulations on our industry. There's always rules that we have to play within. And we just said, hey, all that's really happened is we're moving from one sandbox into a new sandbox with a totally different set of rules. And if this had been the case when we started our business, how would we have opened? Our belief is unless the entire industry is going to go away, we should be able to compete. We are confident that if there's still a market for beer, then it's our job to figure out how to be the best at doing that. And so those have been some really just, one side, the drive-through sort of seemed like the more logical step. Getting into hand sanitizer, looking for other ways to find revenue, that was sort of an unexpected step. But it's really changed a lot of our mindset, even moving forward on how we'll operate.
Great, thank you. So Ramon, you're in a very different kind of business, but you also have had to really change the way you do business. So tell us a little bit about what you do and how that has changed.
Absolutely. And just dovetailing off of what Chris said, I think it's very interesting how he said he had to look at his core values and decide, how can we still do that, but in a different environment. We've been the same thing. So two of our core values are have fun and do the right thing. Doing the right thing, you can do any time, but the fun part. So Jeanette, we do a lot of live events for brands. So usually whether I'm on stage, my team is on stage, or producing an event, being at an event and doing a live Twitter chat from an on-site event. So it's usually live engagement with people, touching people, shaking hands, things of that nature. All that's done. So that's what Smart Hustle Media does. We produce events and things of that nature. And so I can remember the date very clearly, when South by Southwest was canceled, March 13th, Friday. I was like, whoa, I was in a bit of a panic and a tizzy, going to my wife and family wondering what do we do? But I think that similar to how Chris echoed, it's amazing that we're in different businesses. He's in brewery and et cetera. I'm doing events. But wow, the biggest thing we've had to do, even though all that stopped, is turn back to our clients, turn back to our customers and say, those of you who are still, around, those of you who are still doing okay, let's still do events. Let's just do them now online and keep the fun and engaging part in there. So I think that's really the biggest lesson I've learned, is that that fun and engaging part, I think, is that still able to do that, even though we've had to change. But that's what Smart Hustle is about. And it was pretty traumatic, pretty scary. But hey, we're on a call with Co, right? And so that's a positive spin.
Yeah, thank you. So Bridget, as CEO of SCORE, you're talking to small businesses all the time. So more broadly, what kinds of trends are you seeing in terms of how businesses are adapting their business models and pivoting, the word of the day?
Sure. Thank you so much, Jeanette. And like you heard from Chris and Ramon, the businesses that we are speaking to have a number of questions. The first is, how do I keep my doors open? And how do I make sure that I am in a position to pivot and thrive and be sustainable? So the SCORE mentors are ready and available to help with that and navigate all of those, funding and immediate next step questions. And it is important to look to the future and what's next and how can I pivot in order to meet the needs of my clients, keep the doors open, and fulfill those values of the businesses, again, as the two previous panelists stated. Some of the things that we really think and are encouraging businesses to do is to think about how to keep your clients engaged. So whether that means, again, trying to better understand their needs and pivoting, like providing hand sanitizer as a new product, or keeping the clients engaged in a virtual setting, as Ramon has done. Those are two amazing ways, but trying to keep your business as top of mind and relevant to your client is a great way to just stay engaged. Many others have switched to education and making sure that they are providing information and resources to their clients so that when they are ready to ramp operations back up, their clients remember them and are ready to support them. those are some of the ways, but there are others, and there is a wealth of information in our mentoring network that can support the needs of the businesses.
You know, Bridget, before I move back to Chris, can you just tell everyone who doesn't know what SCORE is and does, what resources you have available to them and how they can access them?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the question. And SCORE is a nationwide network of volunteer business mentors who provide free business advice to anyone looking to start, grow, or is struggling in small business. This mentoring is customized, free, one-on-one, tailored to the needs of your business, no matter what struggle, challenge, or success you're having. And it is available at score.org.
Princess, I didn't know you had a business partner.
This is our youngest mentor.
And before I'm coming to you soon, Chris, but also, is there anyone else on this call that was once a SCORE mentee?
Oh, I'm a SCORE baby. I'm like a SCORE grandchild, like a SCORE son. SCORE is like, I've been going to SCORE before there was SCORE, I feel, in 26 Federal Plaza and the New York Public Library in Brooklyn.
Yes, I heard that you were a SCORE mentee. Okay, so Chris, I'm coming back to you.
Can I just add, but one of the things that's beautiful about Ramon's story is he did use SCORE, and now he is an advisor and an influencer for the SCORE network. So he has served on our marketing advisory council and helped spread the word about SCORE to others. He is a huge advocate, and we are really grateful to him.
Yeah, that's great. And I just wanted to make sure businesses knew that you had this service available. So Chris, I am, as promised, now coming back to you. So one thing that I have heard from, I mean, almost every business I've talked to that has found a way to adapt during this pandemic is that they learned and discovered things about their business that they will now carry forward and incorporate into their business plan going forward long after the pandemic is over. And I know that you yourself are in that situation, and I would love to hear more about that. Yeah, so tell us more about
absolutely. And I think that's, it's a critical thing for businesses that I think this is the unique opportunity that this is providing. If there's any silver lining for us that we've seen is it sort of forced us to take a look at everything that we were doing, and we've tried to turn that into a positive, and say, okay, what were maybe things that we would have never done or that we didn't even challenge in the past that now we're looking at and we're kind of challenging everything. So for example, the drive-through, we've always had the ability to do a drive-through. We've just never done it before. And we used to say, well, you can't do it when there's a crowd, when the tap room's open, because you couldn't drive cars through there. And now we've really said, well, hold on a second. What if we put a fence here? And what if we put a crossing guard here? And what if we did this? Could we create a safe environment where people could be both socializing and enjoying the tap room and the drive-through is still going on? And that's just been something that made us think, well, yeah, why not? And we're constantly looking at, even through this, how do you make that drive-through better? We've gone and, just been visiting fast food restaurants to learn. We're like, okay, who's figured out how to service people quickly and avoid keeping really long lines? Because that's one of the challenges when we reopen, right? Is people used to just line up and stand in a line to get their beer. We've never done table service. We just had, you walk up to the beer and grab it. Sometimes those lines get long. When we reopen, we're looking at probably moving to a bit more of a table service type model to say, you know what, that's something we always said wouldn't work, but maybe actually it'll improve the experience. It's possible that this will be a better experience for consumers because they'll get a little more one-on-one time. They're able to engage with their friends the whole time. They never have to get up and move and go stand in a line. So those are a couple things. The other big thing that we've looked at is whether it's hand sanitizer or something else, we've really challenged ourselves to say we are a brewery. That is what we do. But from a purpose standpoint, this idea of fostering human connection, what else might make sense for us to do? Because what we've seen is having a draw that's not beer, right? Everyone comes to the brewery because we're a brewery. But there we had so many people come visit our brewery not because we're a brewery. And so we do things like we have the farmers market on Wednesdays. That's always been another really big draw that has nothing to do with beer, but it brings people in. And so we're really challenging ourselves to say, okay, beer is the obvious that we're going to have to keep doing, but what other things might bring a different type of customer in to visit us so they can experience our brand, get to know more about us and who we are, and hopefully walk away with some beer at the same time. And we get to really create a more genuine connection with that consumer, which is really, as a consumer products company, what we're trying to do is we're trying to create great connections with consumers. So I think those are two big sort of things that we're going to continue. And then virtual working is something that, we used to fly all around the country to go do meetings, it seems like, and now we're like, maybe we could just do a Zoom meeting or a Microsoft Teams meeting instead. And so we're actually in the process of building some office space, and we just met with our architect on Friday and scrapped all of the plans that we had, and we're redesigning that space to be a much more flexible work environment, because we've realized not only does it work and probably save money, for a lot of our staff, they prefer it. They miss the ability to get back together, but they like the flexibility of knowing they can work from home if they need to. And so we're really looking at some things that we used to think were mandatory and saying, hold on a second, before we just go back to business as usual, can we do that, sort of both and mentality? Can we do that and do this? We don't have to just stop doing things that we started doing to go back to where we came from. And I hope, the hope is that if the business can return to a bit of normalcy and you can add this on, you actually come out of this in the long run better positioned for the future than you did going into it. And so that's for us. Those are, a couple of things that big takeaways that we found during this time and in trying to rethink it, that, we're not open a lot of hours anyways, and the drive-thru can be open all day. So what else could we do to get people to the brewery?
Right. Thank you so much. Ramon, same for you. How is this going to change your business long term?
Yeah, I think for sure. I mean, it's stretched me to do new things and think in new ways. I think for sure. One anecdote, for example, as you know, Jeanette, and the new friend Chris and Bridget, who I've worked with many times in the event business, nothing beats in person. Nothing will ever beat, no matter what anybody says, a hug, a handshake, a kiss. Nothing will beat that. But we've had to experiment in new ways to do event, even beyond just a call. How can we have a 5-hour, 6-hour experience? We've done that. So, I mean, it was scary. It was like, let's see how we can do it. But I think for sure we'll be thinking of stretching the traditional, even online model. What can we do to make it really an experience, even fun? It sounds weird, like how can you have fun with a video camera? But no, we're getting into some cool stuff, especially even multidimensional. So to answer the question, that's how we're changing. It's just forced us to do things because we had to, as Chris kind of has alluded to. But now that we had to do it, I'm like, you know what? We may do this in 2025 and 2024 and 2023 and 2021 as well. So that's how it's changed for us.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that this has just forced them to be innovative in a way that they didn't have time to be before. And it was good. What they were doing was good enough. Bridget, before I go to the Q&A, I just want to take a minute and acknowledge that this is easier said than done. And not every business is going to be able to pivot the way that these businesses have. And I'm sure you're hearing a lot of that too. So I just wonder what advice you have for those businesses who really are struggling right now and just maybe don't have these options.
I think it's a great question. And I really appreciate that we are talking about all of the different things that are happening. Not everyone is as fortunate or able to pivot in the quick ways that Ramon and Chris have. And that's why, SCORE mentors and other resource partners through the SBA are here to help. We've all heard in the news the scrambles to access the EIDL and PPP loans, and those can certainly help to keep a business going for the short term. And there are some fears that businesses are facing. Do we lay people off? Is bankruptcy an option? And while those are scary questions to ask, we've learned at SCORE that entrepreneurs and business owners are fearless. You all are courageous, resilient people. And making the hard choices are some of the things that we have to do, but you don't have to do it alone. SCORE mentors can help businesses navigate if bankruptcy isn't an option that would make sense to then be able to position your business to reopen in the future or pursue a new business opportunity. It doesn't mean that it's the end of the road. It just means that things have to change today in order to make sure that something else can grow and rise from these ashes, to make sure that you can, pursue that next opportunity. So it may be scary, but we do encourage everyone to ask those questions, look at all of the options to make sure that you've exhausted every avenue, and reach out for help. You do not have to do this alone. The volunteer mentors at SCORE, there are 10,000 volunteers ready who have been through, not this, no one has ever been through a pandemic like this, but have faced really hard challenges and have that expertise in loans, funding, bankruptcy, HR issues. So reach out and ask for help. We can help you get to that next phase in your business.
Thank you. I just wanted to, to address that, because I feel like it's the elephant in the room. Not everyone is going to be able to do what Ramon and Chris are doing. Chris, I am going to come to you for the very first Q in our Q&A. This person says, basically, I guess they own a restaurant and they are just struggling with communicating to customers that they're open for takeout. So just how did you go about telling your customers that your business model had changed or your service model had changed?
Yeah, absolutely. So we, like many people, we use social media as our main way of communicating the messaging out across the, to all the people who are familiar with us. One other thing that I've just been doing is getting really involved, even at a higher level, with a lot of our local chamber activity, which has been a great way to both kind of build some new connections with a lot of other members of the community. And then that also has spread, we feel like, a lot of word of mouth back out to other people that we've been able to say, oh yeah, I actually know that Creature is doing hand sanitizer, so you can go, or they've got a drive-through now going on, so you can go and do that. So I would definitely encourage, this is as difficult as it is, it feels like a time that we're sort of stuck in our home. I've used email and some of this time to just reach out to a bunch of people who I didn't, I knew them, but we didn't have great connections necessarily in the past. One, checking in on how their business is doing, which also gives, usually an opportunity to talk about how our business is doing and how we've made some changes. And then that word of mouth really starts to spread quickly. And then definitely, we've put some content out on our social media that isn't sort of what we typically would put out in terms of a little more specific, like, hey, this is how you do this to come visit the brewery and come through our drive-through. We didn't talk about that kind of stuff. So we've been much more prescriptive and more consistent in trying to communicate some of that messaging out to people about the fact that we are open. We never used to have to tell people, hey, we're open. That was the assumed thing. And people want to know not just that you're open, but that you've thought about the process and that you've come up with something that is, in our world, the terms touchless and contactless, didn't really exist too much before, but now is sort of common lexicon. So I would definitely encourage, obviously, any social media platforms you have, and then encouraging your staff to go reach out and let people know, but then finding some other community groups that maybe exist within your community and kind of engaging with some of that, reaching with the local chamber. There's been work in Athens to create some websites that list the businesses that are open. We signed up for something that was like an Athens Works, which is we've committed to buying food from restaurants. And as a part of that, for our staff, and as a part of that, we've been able to tell our story a bit more. So yeah, it's and doing calls like this, looking for opportunities to share.
That's actually a really interesting point, is that you've had to change your messaging to be more prescriptive, as you said, just to say things that before were taken for granted. So that's actually a really interesting point. Ramon, I'm going to come to you. This person is asking, you can answer this more generally. This person says, I own a retail business and want to build up my website and e-commerce quickly. So what are the best ways to do that? But you don't need to talk just about retail, but in general, if you are shifting your business from a physical business to a digital business, how do you tell people that and get them there?
Sure, I'll address the question two ways. I think one is that those of who haven't done these things yet, this is a bad time, as I think Bridget and you alluded to, Jeanette. This sucks for many. Many are hurting, okay? But those who aren't, this is the best opportunity to start. There's no excuse for 6 months from now, 3 months from now, a year from now. We're not all digital. We clearly see what's happening. So how to do that quickly? A, You can do it yourself. I won't mention brand names, but there's a number of great brands online that you can do things relatively cheap that are good enough, or spend a bit of money and make it pretty darn good in about 2 days with a cup of coffee sitting at your kitchen. So that's one. And you can do some pretty extensive things, e-commerce, all kind of things. Two, I would suggest if you have the budget, hire somebody. And I'm not saying take advantage of people, Janet, but you can get some pretty cheaper rates. You know, maybe that $5,000 website redo, $10,000 website redo. The developer now, we're all hurting. He or she may come down half price or so. So those are two ways I'd say. One, there's a number of tools that retail shops, restaurants, and others can string together, bring together things to be more like Chris. And to use them as an example, and or hiring the experts who can do it, many online freelance shops. I do that for my team. We have a team of 5, all 1099s, but rock stars, the best video editors, best designers, and etc. So that's what I'd suggest. And thanks for asking it for the retailer, because it is important. You, as we open up our economy, you have to be ready. If you haven't been digital and all cool and fancy before, you kind of need to get cool and fancy now.
Yeah. Bridget, did you want to add something there?
Sure. I think they're great points, and to just speak a little more specifically and tie some of Chris's points in too, making sure that your business is listed on the online directories like Yahoo and Google My Business, and making sure that your business is searchable, because everyone is on their computer or on their phone looking for, you know, things, ways to connect, things to entertain themselves. And so making sure your business can be found online is really critical after you've made that website or established a presence on some of the social media channels. And there are experts out there that you can talk to about your plan. So I know some people have said, you know, Facebook ads or Google ads don't work, but if you have a person in your network, and SCORE mentors can definitely be one of those, you know, make a plan, test it with a small amount of money. You know, $200 for a Facebook ad campaign for a local community is something you can do. And then talk with someone who's an expert and see what worked and what didn't, and tweak that plan. You can still test these days and try to do new things to get the word out and establish that presence. And then look at your community partners, like Chris said, you know, tell the local city or county that you are open for business. Ask them to spotlight you in a newsletter. Try to do your own PR and get the word out. Those are other ways that you are the best spokesperson for your business. So use that tool and get yourself out there as best as you can.
And Jeanette, if I can add one other thing, remember, may I add, Jeanette?
Yes.
Okay, you know, I don't know if you're going to pull a stick out and say no. So,
right.
No. And also, Jeanette, remember, I think before even you pay money for a consultant and all that, what you should do, we are willing to help each other. I'm sure if somebody reached out to Chris, can you just spend 30 minutes with me? Can I drop by? What tool did you use? Whatever. He's busy, but we will. So that's one way I suggest, even before, say, you hire a web developer, what you should do, or do it yourself. Call up your neighbor, your friend. Hey, I noticed you use tool X. How did you like it? So I just wanted to add that there's a lot of free help, but I do want other people who do it for a living to earn too. But before you kind of pay for it, you can always ask a friend or two how they did it.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you. Chris, I'm coming back to you. 2 things. First of all, a lot of people have specific questions about the brewery business. So I'm not going to ask you those today, but maybe folks can reach out to you separately on social media. But they're asking, someone's asking, how do you handle just with yourself and your employees, the emotion of having to adapt to this? It's not just a business decision, it's emotional too. How have you led your team to handle those emotions?
Yeah, I mean, that's a wonderful question. So when it comes to something like this, one, I do feel like talking into things that everybody's familiar with is great. So kind of what me and Ramon were talking about earlier, and leaning back on your values, right? Highlighting the stuff that brings comfort. You know, it's like, hey, we've always said one of our values is make it better. So this isn't anything new to us. We're just trying to make it better. Hey, we've always had a value that is leave a legacy. As a result, this time it's like, well, hey, what's our legacy going to be coming out of this era? What will people say about creature comforts during this time? And when we've had stuff like that and bringing that kind of common language back into the front to say, hey, although this feels vastly different, what we're doing isn't different than what we do every day. We try to make it better. One of our values is people over products. So, hey, we've and I've said this a lot of times to folks is, it's real easy to talk about your values when things are going great. The real test comes when things get bad. And so for us, putting people over products as a value and then having a time come where you can't sell much product and that makes the people side difficult. We've said, hey, this is a great opportunity. So one, I think using language and trying to bring some of the stuff that isn't changed to the forefront is good. And then two is really consistent communication. So one of the other things that is different that we'll probably do forever is we've moved to shorter and more regular meetings for a lot of our leadership team. That's getting things handled much quicker. And then we're communicating out across both email, we use Slack as well. And we've slowed this, but originally we communicated every day at 10 a.m. and at 2 p.m. information out to our staff. And we had sort of said, right or wrong, we're going to pick these two organizations to be our source of truth around the information that is coming out right now. And by doing that and defining that early on, it really cut down on a lot of the sort of information sharing of, I read this article, I read this article, I read this. And so we were able to kind of calm the emotions to say, look, you can count on us that we're using these trusted sources for our information guidance. We're going to tell you every day at 10 o'clock and at 2 o'clock what's going on, any changes that we're making, any decisions that have been made. And so that real consistent communication to everybody helps them know that you as leaders are paying attention and that this is important and that it's a priority. And I think that's one of the biggest things that your people want to know is, are my leaders taking this seriously? Are they paying attention? Are they thinking about this? And so communicating a very regular format with everybody is one of the real big things. And then including them in the solutions. That's been a big piece. So there's a question on how do you get buy-in? We didn't come up with the idea of the drive-through in this. We went to our tasting room employees and said, okay, we're going to shut down for 3 days and then we're going to open. And we don't know what that's going to look like yet, but I challenge you to this new sandbox. How would you do it? And watching what they've come up with from hand sanitizer to this stuff has made us say, wow, we should probably be opening the door to their thoughts and ideas much more regularly and finding more common ways of getting that feedback. So clearly communicating regularly and engaging them in the process of solutions, I think are ways to help handle that emotional side of what's going on with everybody.
Thank you so much. Bridget, what did you want to add there?
I think those are great points, and just acknowledge, we've done that with SCORE. We have 30 or so employees and 10,000 volunteers. And I saw that there was a question, SCORE is open for business, and we've had to pivot too. Our mentoring is 100% virtual, whether it's video like this or phone or email. And checking in with the people. We've all been talking about people and communities and the human connection and asking the questions. How are you doing? Are you okay? What do you need? There can be burnout. And I mean, you all saw that my 5-year-old son just walked in. And so there's balance and things that we all just have to do and acknowledge that this is a hard time. And so remembering that we're people first and staying connected and asking those questions. But, giving your coworkers, your employees, the tools that they need to be a part of the solution, like Chris said, and see the impact that they're having. Our mentors, the reason people volunteer is because they know that they are helping you get through this. And so after a video call, it can be a really uplifting experience for those people when you've worked through a problem.
Thank you. Ramon, I am coming to you with the next question. I've seen a few different people ask, how do they break through the noise with their messaging? So whether that's their social media or their email marketing, everyone is emailing their customers right now. So do you have any kind of general advice on how to be the person, the company that's getting the attention? Hey,
everybody just looked up. I guarantee thousands of people just looked up. That was a silly example. But the point being, when everybody's giving the same information, you have to figure out how can I empathetically, of course, and with care. Now, that was, I said in a lighthearted way, depends on the industry, depends on who you're talking to, but you have to think different. I was talking to a health studio before, and I don't do consulting. This is just me giving and helping people who are calling me, Ramon. And they were saying, Ramon, everybody on Instagram's doing it this way. And I said, that's the problem. You can't do it this way. You have to be empathetic and core to the people who speak your language. But wow, you have to figure out a way to go against the stream. So my message to everyone is, one, Remember your existing customers. Oftentimes we're so looking forward to the next customer, new customers. You already have people who know, like, and trust you. Remember them. You already have their ear. And then 2, sit with your team. As Chris has said, have your own planning meeting, meet with yourself and think. Everybody's using, even tactically, Jeanette, everybody's using a subject line like this for their email. How can we think of even a different subject line? Everybody's Instagram post looks like A. How can we make ours look like A2, if that makes sense? So that's how I think of it. Even for my own marketing, to break through the clutter, I'm marketing. How can I be different? Today, Jeanette, I put up a little thingamajiggy here. I don't know if it breaks through in a small way, but I did it to be different. So it's a silly example, but I think as small businesses are look to reach new people and break through, you have to think different. You have to be different. How your delivery of service is different, and how your how you're communicating that, it all has to be different. So it's a struggle, I know, but it is doable. And a lot of that's creativity.
I'm going to just stick with you for one more question.
Please.
A lot of our questions are about people whose business in some way involves large gatherings. So whether it's event planning or festivals or security for festivals or weddings. And, this is like a really tough thing. And I don't know how you're going to answer this question, but do you have any advice for these businesses that they rely on having a large crowd?
So here's my advice, and it may not sound good, but I'd love to know what, others may say, or Chris or Bridget, depending on the time. But the point is, you may not be able to earn money for some businesses during the next X period of time. That is a fact. We can't beat science or physics, but these are great questions. But what you can do is still build your funnel. What you can do is still build your list. What you can do is still, in a small way, hey, 10,000 people, pretending this is, Instagram or Instagram story or something. You can every day keep doing that. Every day keep doing that. Every day keep sharing the message so that you're not out of sight, out of mind. So no, Janet, I don't know if there's a way to tell people whose business has to be buying a ticket and meeting with 10,000 people in a gymnasium. That is not going to happen. Not going to happen. However, you can still communicate. You can still build your list. And as I gave the hint before, you can still think, how can we do this in a fun way? And Jeanette, anybody wants to email me on some cool tools and things, to just go beyond just a meeting, but to have fun. Don't forget, you can ship things to people. I've done that. If you have the budget, you could ship a little box to 500 people as part of your engagement for an online event. So there's ways around it that are not going to be quite in person, but you can still do some things.
Chris, did you want to add to this?
Yeah, one of the things that I think is really critical to think through, right? There's a mentality aspect that goes into this, and this is kind of what I was talking about the sandbox earlier, right? My view is the sandbox has changed for large events. It has changed for weddings. However, I'm still confident people are going to get married, and I'm still confident people are going to want to figure out ways to do events. And so unless the industry is totally going away, somebody's going to figure out how to do that industry the best with the new rules. And what I would encourage everyone to do is take that shift instead of sort of, oh no, it's like, hey, you will get so much out of nothing more than the exercise of trying to think. And that is another way to keep employees engaged. It's spending the time saying, look, what if this is the new world? What if this is the way it is forever? If that's the case, would we just shut down shop and say we're never going to, I guess I need to change business? Or would you figure out how to do the most incredible virtual weddings that have ever been done? And that's kind of what we've tried to do, even when we think through how do we open. It's like, well, we just have to do it better than everyone else. At the end of the day, as a business, we're in an industry that's extremely crowded. And people always ask, Chris, are you concerned about the number of craft breweries? And it sounds, it always sounds a little bad saying, but it's like, I always say, I'm not concerned because I don't think it's too crowded at the top. If you're the best at what you do, you're alone up there. And that's kind of the way, if you're going to try to be in the middle of the pack or down at the bottom of the pack, it's extremely crowded. But if you're going to be the best at what you do, there's opportunity. And so really taking this time to say, you know what if this is the world forever? How would we do it? Asking that question is an excellent exercise. And that's what led to most of our breakthroughs on this.
And Jeanette, that's why I want to add something that's why, to me, again, I'm going to keep mentioning, notwithstanding those who are hurting and suffering, but I see this as an opportunity. Jeanette, in my garage, 5 feet from where I'm sitting right now, I have 2 cameras, 2 green screens, a multitude of lights, because I'm experimenting with new ways to do stuff. So to me, as Chris said, and I know Bridget agrees, I see her nodding her head. It's, man, I'm just being creative. How can I do new things? Can FedEx or another carrier ship to 1,000 people? I don't know. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking of new ways to do stuff because we have to think different. And I think at some point, of course, all this will come back, hopefully to some semblance of normal, but it's going to be a while.
Yeah. So Bridget, Chris is excited, Ramon's excited. When you own the business, it's like you're excited because this is your life and your baby and your passion. But one of the questions we have is, how do you keep your employees motivated, especially in situations where they could, either their hours are reduced or they could be on unemployment and be collecting actually more money on unemployment than they were making before, which is a situation that I've actually heard a number of business owners mention. So we have just a couple of minutes left. What is your advice on how to keep employees motivated?
It's a great question. And it is something that, we're even talking about at SCORE, as I said. We have a weekly staff meeting and we talked about how to, stay motivated, avoid burnout. One of the great things about our organization, and it sounds like, and I believe many of small businesses and their employees, that the employees believe in the mission and what you're doing. And so focusing on the values is definitely one way to just get back to basics and remember why you're doing what you're doing. Making sure that your employees feel heard. So, Chris and Ramon have both brought their enthusiasm and said, okay, what do you think? And helping them have a voice in the conversation, but also asking them what's going on. There may be people that are struggling because they're trying to take care of their parent and their child, and that is tough. And giving them an outlet just to say things are hard and help them feel heard is important. And then I do think it's important to have fun, because when you shake things up at work and then clear the mind, people are able to come with ideas and are reinvigorated and recommitted to the purpose of the work. So Monday in our staff meeting, we had a scavenger hunt where it was virtual, but there was a list of things. People had 1 minute to go and bring back their item, and it helped us get to know one another. It re-engaged them, and I do believe that the staff is re-motivated to produce for this week. So those are some of the things we would recommend at SCORE. And again, just making sure that your employees know that they are a valued part of your team.
Bridget, this is actually going to be the last question, guys. So Bridget, I have a couple of people asking, can we get SCORE appointments online? So do you want to?
Absolutely. I am so glad that you asked that question. And yes, SCORE remains open for business. So if you go to score.org, you can connect with a mentor. We are also offering real-time mentoring. Between 2 and 5 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you can go and live chat with a mentor who can help connect you with a local mentor, point you to a resource, or answer some of your basic questions in a chat function. There are also some networking lounges. So if you want to connect with like-minded entrepreneurs, you can go and check that out. So we are ready. Our 10,000 mentors are standing by. They are trained on these technologies, and we want to help. Our mission is to help our clients succeed in the good times and the bad. So score.org, we're ready to help.
Great. Thank you so much. That is all of the time we have. So I want to say thank you to Chris, Bridget, and Ramon. Thank you to the audience. Thanks for joining us today, everyone. Next week, same time, Wednesday, we'll be discussing building a new workplace and what work is going to look like in a post-pandemic world. In the meantime, please come visit Co. It's growwithco.com. And we have sections specializing in coronavirus content, and we've just launched one for reopening your business. So we're here to do it all with you. Thank you so much, and we will see you next week.